In a post-truth reality, who will save the world, uncover the mysteries of the universe and build a vast multimedia empire to rival the likes of Genghis Khan? Join these two Aussie meat robots as they thrash out the weird and wonderful, the classified and supernatural, as well as their own inconceivable adventures on the podcast you had to have and never thought you needed. It's time for Hidden in Plain Sight.
Here we are, back with some more Hidden in Plain Sight.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Hall over there.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I keep thinking that there are many things happening inside this universe, but one of them happened only last night. I went to visit that place we were talking about recently, Turtle Rock, and it was a full moon, and it was pretty wild up there, man. It was very bright. One thing we didn't talk much about on the episode, and something that I saw only in the illumination of the full moon last night, was the tool carving areas on the rock.
Yes.
And they're set up in a very interesting pattern on one section of the rock. There are 5 different areas. There's a little hole for water there, and then there are tool grooves. And I had to, lean down and sort of put my hands on it. And I guess it could be seen as being a bit weird to be out there in the middle of the night on a full moon, but I guess if you're facilitating a paranormal podcast and interviewing people about this stuff, you got to live like it's real. And so I got up there and I just had an incredible connection to the history of that place. It was pretty special. Yeah.
Well, I think one thing touching on that was Turtle Rock, the Aboriginal history of the place. It's purported in lots of stories to be somewhat of a meeting place and what they might call a portal, or a place where strange and interesting things will happen. And I think you and I talk about that in every episode, because if you go up there with a ritual in mind, with a process in mind,
yes,
it's the kind of place that can respond.
Well, that certainly was my experience last night. I went up there with a few questions in my mind, and I got some answers. I saw a few things and thought about a few things. They weren't, groundbreakingly astounding in any way, but they were good things, and it felt like it was a good place to visit. It's interesting because when we did the episode, we referenced this place as being an indigenous area for 22,000 years, and I tried to find what the indigenous name was, and unfortunately, that seems to have disappeared in time. We do know that it was the people of the Gundungurra people, that was like the nation or the tribe that was in that area.
Yep.
But now it's just called King's Tableland Aboriginal Place. That's its name. And so there's a lot of things that have been, I think time has kind of, and colonialism and a whole bunch of stuff has just etched away. Time does make these things go away. But at the same time, that mark of people making tools in that area
still there. It's there. It's bona fide. I mean, you and I have spent time discussing off camera. In fact, we attempted to discuss a few of these on camera to no avail. Think places like Nan Madol, Shudder. Yep. Don't mention that place. Hey, if no one knows what Nan Madol is, NANMODOL.
Yes.
Go check it out. It is it's a wondrous place, a wondrous architectural, I don't know, something. I don't know what you'd even call it. It's just incredible. It looks
like Superman's Fortress of Solitude, except made out of granite.
Yes.
Or basalt. I think it's basalt, isn't it? Yeah, like volcanic rock, and they are hexagonal logs that have been carved out of the island and transported in a way that no one can understand.
No one can work it out. It's one of these miraculous things to this day that people are saying, even with modern technology, very, very difficult project. But it's just, before we get stuck on that, it's one of many places around the world that have something. So that you got, pyramids is a classic one. It's a great one. These places that purportedly have a resonance, but we've lost the history. So we have a history that we kind of agree on now, but that's almost changing like weekly as we're making new discoveries with LiDAR and all kinds of stuff, that we're discovering things where people are saying, wow, maybe the narrative that we have been learning at school and sharing between ourselves is not correct. Discovery of a gigantic city under the rainforest
The
in,
Amazon
in the
rainforest in
Amazon.
South America.
Yeah,
Crazy.
like LiDAR is starting to expose like limestone streets and courtyards and building structures and things that are previously we thought didn't exist. So if I think it was something we've discussed ourselves. Has there been an intentional manipulation of history, or is it just the idea of as things have moved along, someone said something, someone else shared that information, and all of a sudden the whole narrative is changed?
Look, I think it's a combination of both. I think I'm reading the Tom O'Neill book, Chaos, at the moment, which covers the killings that Charles Manson was responsible for or pinned on, and the
Yes.
family carried out. And for a long time, that the conventional narrative of that was based on the book Helter Skelter by Vince Pugliosi. And what this investigative journalist does over a 20-year period is he pulls at all the threads and finds that there's a very different motive. There's a very different narrative that goes on behind this, and it ties back to intentional manipulation by government agencies. It also speaks to the human element of ego and wanting to chase prestige, wanting to distort facts for people's own personal gain. So I think there's a combination of it. And then the other thing is that memory and history is an interesting thing because our memories shift and change over time. The way that we remember things shifts and changes over time.
Absolutely.
And so I think there's a combination of things that we forget. But going back to that spot that I was in last night, those carvings in the ground, they are still there. And we're talking like 20,000 years or more ago. And the reason I brought it up was because in the interview that we're about to share with you with John, our geography teacher from our old school, John Taccori. Tacco was, as he was affectionately known as.
Tacco. He taught my sisters.
Yes.
So he was there. He was at the school. He taught your family as well.
No. I was the only person.
Beck was there.
Beck was there. I was there, but no one before me. Yeah, there was no other family members there.
Well, he was there from. I mean, how long did he teach at the place?
41
30,
years.
40?
No, 41 years. Yeah, so he was there
pretty much from
when he was a young guy, young teacher, like in his 20s till when he retired. So he stayed there.
So it became a school. So this place we're talking about was a seminary and part of the Catholic kind of diocese. It was a training area basically for.
Yeah, so it's in what's a suburb called Wimerlee, formerly known as North Springwood.
Yeah.
And if you have a look at where it is and when it was built, which is at the beginning of the 20th century, same time as the house that I lived in Valley Heights was built. So they were built around the same time. This school, this seminary, it was, it's a very grand place. But interestingly, at this place that was built all these years ago, that would have been a very remote area. A place.
Absolutely.
As Taco talks
Dude, when
about,
we were kids, it was still remote.
Yeah. There would be no houses around it. It would be sort of like almost like a place that you would go for retreat and spiritual reflection there. So that's what that place was. And the other reason I mentioned the Turtle Rock, the indigenous connection there, is that there's a very strong indigenous connection to that particular area. That was another area of meeting and convergence of different groups of people that were moving through the mountains, which is fascinating as well. And Taco goes on to talk a lot about that and his connection to that history.
Well, it's an interesting, just on that note, it's interesting why places get chosen. I mean, it's a pretty random place when there's not much around. When that was being built, it would have been literally the only thing around for Kui.
Yeah.
Why do you just choose that place? That's the thing. Is it random? Did someone just go, oh, I'm tired, let's just build it here? Or was there that connection and understanding this was an old meeting place, or this is a place of energy, or this is whatever it is? Let's build it here. Because one thing I've noticed when I've been studying and going through lots of, let's say, sacred sites or places of energy around the world, oftentimes you'll find that there has been multiple things built on that site. So it started maybe as some kind of a Stonehenge or a stone gate. Then there was a structure built on it, and oftentimes the church would come along and build on these places. So you have underneath a lot of churches, there's old ruins of previous religions or previous places of, I don't know, spiritual enlightenment or whatever you like to call it. So that's just an interesting point.
Yeah.
If there's any connection, who knows?
Well,
But
look, there might be a connection. I mean, maybe it's as easy a connection as to say the foundations for the structure's already more or less in place and we can just build
yeah,
on top of it. That could be the
it's
connection
built
there.
to magnify it.
But then again, I mean, there are cities that have been completely abandoned and just people have moved on from altogether and no
Yes.
one's rebuilt on there. So who knows what the reason might be?
Who knows? Well, there's a good, I mean, we had some fun times in high school. It just reminds me of a few things when we think about Taco. He was our homeroom teacher as well.
That's right. Yep.
So you and I were in the same homeroom, which basically, for anyone who doesn't know what homeroom is, it's basically a kind of a roll call class, really, isn't it? It's like when you get to school, that's your kind of core group of people. It doesn't mean you're in the same classes to learn anything. It's just that's your group.
Yeah.
You're given a name and a number.
Yeah.
And every morning you meet there and you spend there 10 or 15 minutes. They mark you off on the roll and share some news and stuff, and you bugger off and go learn, basically. But we had the homeroom, remember, in the room that had the bell tower above it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So the bell tower was always, I remember my sisters went there like 10 years before we did. And the legend even from them was the bell tower's haunted.
Yes.
Don't go in the bell tower. It's super haunted.
I think the idea was that people would see a figure appear in the bell tower. And if you went up inside there, underneath it was supposed to be pretty spooky as well. I think it was off limits for the students. We weren't allowed to go up there unless...
We got up there once.
You did? I can't remember. Yeah, right.
Not with you. I got up there when we were doing, actually, it reminds me of a funny story about handing out beer to students, but we'll get to that in a sec.
Yeah.
So we had an electronic arts or electronic media teacher called Mr. Borg. We had a great one called Mr. Ellis.
Yep.
And a school poached him for big money because he was brilliant. Mr. Ellis knew his stuff. He was brilliant. And then they moved in Mr. Borg, who just kind of probably read a few catalogs and went, all right. He was a young guy. I think he's a bit sexy. The chicks used to like him.
Yes.
So it was myself, it was Jasmine Thompson. Who else was it? Who else was with us? Can't remember, but there was 2 or 3 of us.
Yep.
And we decided that we said to Mr. Borg, we want to make we had the school video camera. We want to make a little doco, but we want to go up to the bell tower. Can we do it?
I remember this. Yeah. Okay. I remember you guys.
And he was like, oh, I don't know. And we got it. We got permission to go up the bell tower. So we got up there and it's quite small. So you go up through the thing, and I know why they closed it down, whether the haunted thing or not. I mean, it was an old wooden staircase. It was pretty rickety, so you didn't want... But the funniest thing happened. We had a janitor or a guy who was looking after the grounds. And it was just one of those coincidental, crazy-ass things. We're up in the bell tower, just filming out down the driveway. We had no intention of making a doco. We just wanted to get up in the bell tower. We're just filming down the driveway like this. And all of a sudden, there's some trees lining the right side of the driveway, little kind of like 3-4 meter high, kind of shrubby apple tree. I don't know what the hell they were. Anyway, all of a sudden, this guy just launches out of one of these trees. Just you see this guy appear and go slap on the driveway. And then he's like, gets up, he's wearing his wife beater singlet and his blue shorts. And it's a really hot day. You can see there's a sweat mark where he's landed.
No.
And he gets up and he's completely unaware anyone's watching this. And he gets up and he looks at the tree and he starts John Cleesing the tree. He's like slapping the tree. And he's got his secateurs and he slams his secateurs into the ground. He's swearing bloody blue murder at the thing. And then he kind of composes himself and just walks off. We got this on tape. I don't know whatever happened to the tape. But we filmed this whole thing, and that man, imagine just like, oh, we're just here to film the bloody thing, and this happens right on camera. Dude falls out of the thing.
Mate, you could reminds me millions.
Reminds me of one. Remember we went to school with a guy called Pat Lewis? He was from one of the Upper Mountains boys.
Yeah.
So the electronic media room was in kind of a ground floor place, which was behind the school gymnasium, like in as part of the old sandstone building. It was across from the seminary, across from that was the house called. That's now the music room.
Right. Oh yeah, the Gold Convent.
Whatever that house, that little house
Yeah.
the priest used to live in.
Yep.
So that we were straight across from that. And in that room, it must have been the old kitchen or something, because off that room there was a little hall, and at the end of the hall there was a few walk-in fridges that were not in use anymore.
Right.
And Pat Lewis and I had a bit of a fun scuffle in drama, and smashed a little slat window in that hallway.
Mm.
And Mr. Borg. This was during what do you call it? Social media,
Yes.
electronic media class.
Yes.
So Mr. Borg said, "You guys have to stay detention. You got to clean this, and you got to clean the entire room." Like, okay, and I think we're in year 8 or end of year 8, beginning of year 9. In the process of this, of course, being kids, we're like, I wonder what's in those fridges.
Yeah.
And they were locked, but we worked out a way to kind of bust it open without busting it open. And when we busted open, there was all these cases of beer, like maybe 5-6 cases of VB. And we're like, wow. So we go out, we're looking through the slat of the broken window that we've created, and we saw a few mates. We're like, hey, get your bag. What? Get your bag. Come over.
Yeah.
So we're there. We spent the whole detention handing out cans of VB through this broken window. And by the end of it, like half the school was congregating. I don't know how we didn't get caught. Half the school was congregating outside the drama room. And I think that lunchtime, half the school was drunk. So that's part of the joy.
Where was my invite to this drunken school party? Because
I have no idea.
Maybe I was.
I think it was the time before you and I were mates. I think it's that weird time, that end of year 8. Kind of. I think we started hanging out more at the kind of year 8, end of year 8, year 9.
Yeah.
So this was like during year 8.
No,
me and Patty, we were the most popular kids in school that day.
Oh, I bet you were. Well, crazy times. Well, let's jump into this episode now. Let's have a listen to the interview with Mr. Taccori, and take it away, John. Okay, well, thank you so much, John, for joining us on the podcast, Hidden in Plain Sight. Thanks for coming along.
No, it's a pleasure. Been looking forward to it.
Now, we first met each other at the school that we're going to talk about today. You were my teacher in HSIE, which is like a geography topic, and we also did like RE, which is religious education, because it was a Catholic school. That's right.
Yeah, that's correct. So that was many moons ago.
It was a few moons ago, and it was funny because I bumped into you in the gym just recently because I've moved back to my hometown, and that was the first time I've seen you after a long time. And you had a much longer beard at school, is that right?
Yeah. I went through some times where I had it short, but then long, and then I shaved it off, and
I think
then I grew it again.
I think it was just after you shaved it off for a bit, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's John Taccori. We used to affectionately call you Taco, and I was like, is that Taco? And I was like, it's got to be him. And so I walked over and I was like, John, good to see you. It was really good because it's reconnected me to the school and a few of the other teachers there. And I've just been there recently helping with their drama program. So, it's good.
I knew that, you were going to be involved in that. I passed on your name.
Yeah. So it's good to be back up at that school. And look, just to as a way of getting us started, could you give us an introduction, a bit of a background around the school that we're talking about? I believe it's a Catholic school, but once was a seminary. Do you know much about the history of the school?
Like you alluded to, it was built just at around 1909, and it's a very old place. It was a seminary where young men used to go and train to be priests. And then towards the and I must say for the listeners, a seminary is for those who may not know, it's the environment is quite isolated. It's an old sandstone building. very beautiful, and it's in the middle of the wilderness. Essentially, it backs onto public land, and it's on about 1,200 acres of just pure wilderness, and so it is quite isolated, and it was isolated possibly even at the turn of the last century when it was built. But it was purposely built for isolation because they, just wanted the young men to train and be spiritual and not be influenced by, life back then. But later on in the 1970s, what happened was there weren't a lot of priests joining up, and so there was a decline in enrolments. So what they did is they shipped all those young men out, and it was just a vacant, beautiful estate essentially. And so the local people, including the local community and the church at the time, decided, okay, why don't we turn it into a school?
Right.
So that's essentially what they did.
And so the school started in the late 1970s. And when I was there, I think it must have been operating to like mid 90s for about 20 years. And I believe it was extended just a few years before I joined to year 7 all the way through to year 12.
Yeah, so the school started in 1979 and sort of in the sort of mid 1990s, early to mid 1990s, the school was extended because there was a bit of a population boom in the local area, and there was a demand for senior school education.
Yep.
Senior meaning year 11 and 12, and so that got expanded, and so the curriculum got expanded. And so we had it's a regional high school, so it takes in a lot of young people. The enrolment's probably a radius of 80 or 90 kilometres.
Yeah. People from all over the Blue Mountains. I remember kids catching the train from upper mountains and lower mountains. They would come to the school from all over the place, which was
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really great. I met many of my very good friends, and in Josh, who's the other guy on the podcast, have made lifelong connections with a number of people there. And as mentioned earlier, just revisited the place to help out my old drama teacher. So it always had an extraordinary kind of energy for me, especially the kind of sandstone buildings. I always thought of it a little bit like years after I saw it, but it was kind of like a Hogwarts school in a way, not quite as grand, but it had that grand feeling of the architecture and the place there. So it was, it was pretty special. It was a pretty amazing place to go to school in. And you're right, surrounded by essentially national park and a lot of wilderness. It was incredible place to go to school in. On the podcast, we talk a lot about experiences that people have that are sort of beyond what is the usual. Some people could refer to these as paranormal or supernatural experiences, and we're essentially looking at demystifying what some of these things are, because obviously going to a school which we had a spiritual education there, the world of the spirit is not something we kind of go, oh, well, that's not real. It's something that a group of people that are growing up in spiritual education embrace. However, when we talk about it in other ways, it's kind of, there's what's the best word? There's a slight skepticism about these kind of ideas. So that's the idea, as we're talking about these things to sort of bring them to the fore. I'd be really interested to hear, what were your experiences at that school that would cross the boundary of the everyday into possibly the paranormal or supernatural?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I guess I had a number of experiences at that place. I wasn't necessarily told much about, if there was anything like that happening at the school. And I was only a young teacher when I started in the sort of mid 1980s, and I was just there to just do a job. And but it didn't take long for some stories to emerge from people who may have worked there previously or were students there previously. But it was just casual conversation. It wasn't something that I was really tuned into. I knew a lot about, and I'd read a lot about the Indigenous history of the property. It's got an amazing Indigenous history. It was a meeting place for a number of nations that came together. The property is on top of a ridge, and there's a lot of flat ground, and so it was ideal that various tribes would meet, maybe for a corroboree once a year or whatever that may be. And I sort of thought it was a bit of a casual thing, but after I met a number of archaeologists who had done some diggings on the property, I started to realise that it was an incredible place for Indigenous gathering and even movement. But it wasn't a permanent settlement, and that's what I learned from the extensive archaeological digs that occurred on the property. And there were very well documented. And then in the 1990s, there was a fire that went through the place. And again, we had some Indigenous archaeologists that came through the place and found some new areas that hadn't been discovered. And so I knew that there was this rich history as time progressed. There came I guess one of the earliest moments that I had was possibly around, I don't know, maybe 1987, if I can remember correctly. I remember being a young teacher, trying to establish yourself. There was a lot of late afternoon times where I'd stay back and, do a lot of work, preparation. Whilst, more experienced teachers might have left a little bit earlier, I'd always be staying back to try and grab the photocopier. I sort of, prepare things when there's a bit more quietness happening rather than a lot of buzz during the day. And so I remember I was in this very old part of the school, and I was upstairs, and I was very mindful. That there was a nun who used to live on the property, and someone told me that she lived at the end of this corridor, and one of the staff rooms was not quite at the end of this long corridor. But I knew that there was this room at the end of the corridor, and it was open, and it looked like just a bedroom, a large bedroom, and it was it would have been a comfortable room for any person to sleep in, but we had converted it into another staff room, so to speak, and a bit of a storage room. So I was conscious that that was at the end of the hallway, and I was also conscious that this particular nun lived there for a very short period of time. She didn't drive, so she needed accommodation, and she was given the church allowed her to stay on site, and this was before my time, so it must have been in the maybe perhaps 1979, 1980 that she was maybe living there. But I heard that she didn't stay there very long, and that she didn't enjoy staying there on her own at night, and that there were things that occurred. And when I inquired about what these things were, I never got a response. It was always silent. It was just.
And was this from other teachers or from the school administration or from?
Yeah, just from other teachers who may have been there during that time.
And what do you think their reluctance was to talk about it? Was that they thought it was silly, or did they think that was it something people just didn't talk about?
I think it was a bit of both, and I think predominantly they didn't know themselves because the nun never spoke about it.
Right.
But they knew that it was a place where she was quite uncomfortable.
And what were these occurrences, these things that the nun was talking about or mentioned?
Well, she didn't.
She didn't say.
She didn't speak about it, no.
Right.
She just said she just didn't feel comfortable staying there.
Okay. Which is unusual for a nun who would have, essentially spent a lot of life living in religious institutions, whether that might be a convent or Catholic properties.
That's
feel
right.
uncomfortable in that.
I guess the difference was that she was living alone. She wasn't in a community.
Okay.
Although my understanding was she did go back to her convent.
Yep.
On the weekends.
Okay.
It was just convenient for her to stay there during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think too much of it.
Yeah.
And someone had alerted me that that particular corridor was, in a sense, could be a bit spooky.
Okay.
And I thought, yeah, fair enough. Whatever that means, I don't know. But it was one afternoon when I was walking down this corridor and I popped into one of the staff rooms to drop off something on a teacher's desk. And on my way out, all of a sudden there was this force that caused me to, it just shoved me against the wall.
Could you see?
There was no one around.
Yeah,
there was nobody around. There was no one in front of me. I didn't see anything. I just felt this force. And it was like I blanked out, but I didn't fall. And I remember it was like 4:30. It was around 4:30 because I wanted to get home and I just had to do this one thing and I had to drop it off on a person's desk, a teacher's desk. And so I knew it was around 4:30. And I was, like I said, I was on my way out of that corridor back to my other staff room. And it was this force, like I said.
John, may I ask about the force? Was it a sense of like like a person pushing on your chest? Did it feel like it could be like that, or did it feel more like something stronger than that, or did it feel like a wind? Like, what was the pressure of the force?
I guess it was like someone pushing me,
Yep.
but I
Strong enough
didn't
to
really
feel like it moved you, push
yeah,
you
but
against
it
the
wasn't
wall.
like I felt hands on me. I just
No.
felt like this force. Think of someone maybe holding a board,
Yep.
and so I wasn't feeling hands. I was just feeling this pressure
All across your body.
all across my body
And
and
did it?
pinning me against the wall.
And how long do you think you were pinned against the wall for?
Well, like I said, I felt like I was in this time warp,
Interesting.
and I wouldn't say I was blanked out, but it felt like I had blanked out, but I didn't fall.
Or possibly lost time during that moment?
Absolutely, it was a loss of time because when I came back to reality,
Mm.
I looked at my watch and it was 4:45.
Okay. It's interesting. So
So
it
I
was
was in
4:30
this
to maybe 15 minutes of time went missing.
about 15 minutes of time.
Very interesting.
And I remember that I had a watch because I needed because you had
Teacher, yeah.
50-minute lessons. You had
Yep.
to,
And
keep
no
time.
mobile phones,
No, no, none at
Definitely,
all.
definitely by the watch, yeah.
And sorry, I've got a bit of a cold today.
All good.
And so I thought, wow, that's really weird. Had no idea what it was, and I I don't know. I just went to my staff room, grabbed my bag, and I went out. I went home.
What was your feeling at the time like? Did it give you a feeling, like some sort of emotional response to it, or were you just neutral in that moment? How did you feel during or after the experience?
I don't remember what happened during, but afterwards I felt like, what was that?
Yeah.
What happened? I've
So
never experienced anything like that before.
so curious, but
It
without a
was,
sense of dread or fear. Is that
I had
okay?
no
Interesting.
fear at all. And I just came home, mentioned it to my wife, and I just thought it was just a really weird experience.
It's really interesting how we store away these interesting experiences on the podcast by talking about some of these things. It's bringing up the memories for me of strange things that have happened throughout time. Did you go to anyone on the staff after this to ask them or share with them about what this was and get some feedback from them?
Well, I did.
Mm,
The next day, I spoke. I didn't broadcast it to
sure.
a lot of people. I went to an original member of staff.
Mm-hmm.
Right when this male teacher,
Mm-hmm.
much older than what
Mm-hmm.
I was, probably 27 at the time,
Okay.
something like that.
Yep.
Um, Maybe a bit younger, 26 perhaps. And I went to a senior member of staff, so much older than what I was. And he was a guy who was very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
He he didn't believe in anything. He didn't
Yep.
believe in religion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was a guy that was really level-headed
Mm-hmm.
and softly spoken guy.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't say much. Wasn't one to always talk about his life or experiences.
Yep.
He's just a quiet sort of guy.
Yep.
But I went to him because he was the sort of guy that was a really good listener.
Mm-hmm.
And because he'd been there since the beginning of the school, I just wanted to get a sense of, what I'd experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to talk to someone, but not put too much emotion in it, just to share it with someone who I trusted, I guess.
Mm.
Anyway, I said to him, I told him what happened.
Mm.
And the next day, and he listened. He didn't question me. And when I was talking to him, I felt like he was listening to someone and to a story that perhaps he'd heard before.
Interesting.
It was just his body language,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just nodding and listening. Anyway, to my surprise, he told me that the exact same thing happened to him probably about 4 or 5 years prior.
Oh, fascinating. Same spot, same place.
Same hallway, same spot.
Interesting.
And this guy, like I said, he's got no belief in religion, nothing.
A
And
skeptic,
he's not.
essentially. A skeptical human being.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's more of a scientific sort of
Yep.
guy
Needs
who
evidence, empiricism.
needs evidence, you know?
Yep.
And when he told me, my jaw dropped. I thought, wow, like what happened to me must be true. It's not just something going on in my head.
It's not an
For this
isolated
guy,
experience. Yeah.
it wasn't isolated. For this guy to say that he experienced it, and I just thought, oh, this is really weird.
Mm.
Really weird.
Did he have a
Um,
thought of what it might be? Any theory, any ideas of what he?
no,
No.
no.
How do? So odd, so strange to have that kind of experience. It's hard to explain it using any kind of rational or empirical science-based evidence. Invisible forces pushing people against walls, losing
Yeah.
time. It is something outside our current understanding of science, I think.
He's the sort of guy that if I told him the story, he he wouldn't have believed me, and he would have dismissed it as just something that was in my mind.
Mm.
And I guess I chose him to talk to because I did know him and I did respect him as a teacher and someone who's a pretty straight thinker
Yep.
and takes emotion out of things.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there to try and persuade him
Mm-hmm.
or get him to see my perspective. It was none of that. It was just something I had mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to talk to him about it. And that was basically it. But for this guy then to turn around and say, wow, that happened to me, I thought, wow.
Was there anyone else on staff that had a similar experience like that, or did you just confide with this particular person and they shared that?
I just confided in him
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't really share it with anyone else
Mm.
that day or in weeks, in the future. It was just something that I just kept to myself, and this other guy knew about it. And by him confirming what I'd experienced, I just thought, you know what? Probably better not to tell anyone.
Yeah, right.
Being a religious school, I still hadn't got a sense of how people felt about
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. And
Yep.
I just thought, nah, I just let it go. And essentially that was my first experience.
So you say that's your first experience working at the school for a number of years. There were multiple things that happened over time?
Yeah, there were a lot of incidences that occurred, and I don't think I could really talk about all those, in a podcast,
Yeah.
uh, because there are limitations there. But um, what I can say is that the experiences I had were always at a time where the school was empty
Okay.
and there weren't a lot of people around, hardly any at all. And so I've 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 experienced things early in the morning,
Hmm.
late afternoons,
Hmm.
and in the evening.
And were these things all manifestations of force pushing against you and losing time, or were they auditory or visual experiences?
Um, they weren't pushing. That was the only time.
Hmm.
What I just told you was the only time of a force pushing me
Yeah.
and time warp, I guess.
Yep.
But the other times were um, where I'd experienced uh, odd things happening
Hmm.
and also touch.
Okay.
So it wasn't a force, but there was touch.
And when you felt these touches, was there, I don't know if you can recall, but did you have a feeling of temperature or pressure or parts of the body or feelings that happened with the touch?
Uh, I guess the only feeling I had was surprise and um, just aspiration. Think, oh, what was that?
Right.
That sort of feeling.
Yep.
Um, but that's about it, really.
Yeah.
And but having, but knowing full well that I was in the presence of something else.
What did you think that presence was? Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I've always been interested in Indigenous history,
Yeah.
and there was a time in the school early on where, because of my interest in the history, I was learning a lot,
Mm.
and I started to learn a lot about the the Darug people who predominated in that particular area. And so, as a geography teacher,
Mm.
I used to invite Indigenous people to
Mm.
come and talk to my students
Yep.
about Indigenous culture. And over the years, I had invited many Indigenous people, which I just made contact with. And they were happy to come to the school and talk to my students. Sean, without a word of a lie, every Indigenous person that I had invited over many years, and I don't know why it never happened when they arrived, but it was always when they were leaving.
Hmm.
And for some reason, it was always in the same spot that they would say something to me. And you know that the front entrance up those 2 or 3 sandstone steps of the school is pretty grand.
Yes. Yep. Sort of a stone archway or moving into a
Correct.
cloistered quadrangle.
Correct. And we always had this conversation in that area,
Yes.
right? In that forecourt that occurred, that, at the entrance. All of them almost said the same things to me. because I'd always escort them out of the school just as a courtesy. I'd always walk with them to their car and thank them for spending some time with my students.
Mm.
That every one of them said to me, John, there are spirits in this place and I can feel them. All of them said that.
Mm.
Essentially using the same script. My visitors weren't interconnected or they weren't from the same organisation. They were just individuals who were Indigenous and they were prominent Indigenous people, and they just came to talk to the kids.
It's
But all
fascinating.
of them would say to me, John, there are spirits in this place.
It's fascinating that there's a collective experience of so many different people independently of each other.
That's right.
Mm.
So that got me, I don't know, I was just really surprised that there was this constant message that was spoken about this place. I never questioned them. I never said, how do you know? What sort of spirits are there? I never asked them. But in a sense, I believed what they said.
Yeah.
I never doubted what they said. I had a lot of respect for these people and their story and their history. And if they said that to me, then I'd say, yep.
Yeah.
But I guess what I felt down that corridor, in a sense, when they'd say this to me, I'd say, yeah, look, I've experienced that. And as the years progressed and I had various other experiences, I'd say, yes, I know.
Right.
I feel them myself.
It's so interesting, John, that so many of these Indigenous speakers that came to the school had a collective, almost identical experience and in the same place said the same thing to you.
Yeah, it was astonishing, but it was something that I got used to hearing quite often. And with the experiences that I have had in that place, it started to confirm, what they felt as well. Now, obviously, they probably didn't experience what I had experienced, but I'm a believer that certain people, and in my experience, Indigenous people, not all Indigenous people, but the ones that I sort of had, who were mainly elders in the community, they had this sixth sense that most others don't, and they were happy to share that during those times when they did come to the school.
I must ask, John, just my family history, there is a certain history of connection or that sixth sense, which is part of the reason why I'm interested in this, is something I grew up with. In your family, was there anyone in your family that may have talked about these things growing up or experienced these or shared stories like this in your own family history?
Look, I come. I've got an Italian background, and it's pretty normal in our family and growing up in our family that we talked about death and dying, and my parents would from time to time talk about spiritual experiences that have occurred. in their lives. And it's very interesting that since the passing of my own parents, I've experienced things related to them.
Yep.
Supernatural experiences at the most unique time in my life. And interestingly, there was always other people who had experienced what I experienced related to my parents. They were with me and they thought, wow. I had to sort of line up the situation in the sense I had to say, hey, this just happened, and sort of join it only one or two dots, and then they went, oh, wow, amazing.
John, was that a sensation similar to at the school, with a sense of touch or connection through feeling, or was it something you heard or saw or thought?
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Something so I remember I had a very significant birthday in recent years, and my son's a journalist and he's a videographer. And many years ago, when I was in my late teens, I had produced an album, and my son decided for my birthday he would put a film clip together of one of the songs.
Awesome.
And that was his gift to me.
Beautiful.
And so he put together a collection of footage that he had done, and put it all together and overlaid it with this song, which was which I recorded when I was younger. And we went to a local restaurant, and we were outside, and it was evening. It was in summer. It was a balmy evening. We were sitting around, and it was time for them to give me a gift. So they, my kids, my wife, and and my sister was present as well, and her husband, and they were giving me gifts, and then my son waited right to the end, and he said, "Dad, I got my laptop here. I want to present you this thing that I put together for you." And so we're at this. I've got to set the scene. We're at this restaurant, and it was. We're at the back in this garden. We're the only people in the back. Most of the people were inside the building or at the front of the property where there were other seats. And there was this pipe music coming through. Pipe music, just gentle in the background. And it was pretty modern music, pretty hipster type music. We went to a pretty hipster type place, and it was just pumping away in the background all night. And then my son opened up the laptop. We all were around the table listening. The pipe music was soft, but we could hear his in the background, soft in the back, but we could hear my song from his laptop. It was put on high, and we were listening. And I was watching the video, listening to the music, and then all of a sudden, the pipe music put on Ave Maria in Italian. That was my mum's favourite song, and it was sung at her funeral. And my wife grabbed me and said, "Listen." I said, "Listen to what?" While the video was playing, she goes, "Listen up here to the music." And all of a sudden, my sister tuned in and she started crying. And I became pretty emotional because my sister and I, we knew straight away what that meant.
Yeah.
And obviously my wife did as well. And it was like my mum saying, I'm here today with you.
That's
And it's a
beautiful.
very important day. And I don't know. I believe that was something extraordinary, and there was something unusual and some communication between my mum, who's deceased obviously and has been for a while, and that present moment. A short time after, I went to pay the bill.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into the main building, had my credit card, and the owner served me. And I was paying the bill and I said, hey, listen, I don't know, maybe about 30 minutes ago, there was this song that came through this pipe music. And all your songs are, pretty funky sort of stuff. And why was there this Italian Ave Maria song? He goes, yeah, I know, I heard that. I said to the staff, what the hell's that? Where did that come from? Because they pay for this bundle of music to be piped through. It wasn't put on, it wasn't tuned into ABC or anything like that, or the classic ABC program. It was just pipe music, which they pay for, and for a particular type of music to be pumped through their system. So when he said, I don't know what that was, I heard it myself, and I asked my staff, what's going on here? And I thought, well, there you go. How do you explain the unexplainable?
Oh, it's so interesting, and it gets me thinking because my dad passed a couple of years ago, and I think that's having lost a parent and having had those kind of not the same experiences but similar experiences. Funnily enough, at my dad's funeral, we played Ave Maria as well, but it was my dad singing Ave Maria at my brother's wedding from 25 years before. So we had a
Wow.
recording of him singing it. He was singing in the Latin because dad was a great singer and he used to sing at the school
Yeah,
from time to
yeah.
time.
Remember your
And
dad, yeah.
yeah, that song is really powerful, and for it to pop up in a playlist which is like hipster or funky
Yeah,
music or whatever it might be is so odd. It's a very odd algorithm to have that happen. So I think yeah, I reckon there is a bit of connection for sure between your mum coming to visit. Thank you so much for sharing that particular story as a way of just sort of anchoring this in to the world of what we're talking about, because
yeah.
I do think, like you said before about the Indigenous people that came to the school, I think there is a cultural heritage that comes with maybe maybe lots of different cultures. Certainly, I grew up sort of Anglo-Celtic, Irish Catholic background, and there's lots of tales from that world, and certainly my mum has those stories as well. I know that you just talking about the school that that I went to as a student, and you were as a teacher. You mentioned that there might be a couple of other things that, yeah, that happened there that you think could be significant that
Mm.
you'd like to share with us today.
Yeah. So um, there was this particular morning. It was a Saturday morning, and I had gone to the school quite early, probably about 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I went to do some marking. It was sort of exam period.
Hmm.
I had to catch up on some marking for the students. So I let myself in. It was all locked up, and we all have keys, and I just made my way to the top floor, and I went into the staff room, and we've got this well, back then we had this staff room where we're all in this room together, which was very different to my first story where we had small staff rooms with only maybe 5 or 6 people. So, but we went to this model where all the staff were all together in this huge room.
It was an open plan. I remember knocking on the door occasionally and having to have a conversation with a teacher. It was a massive space. It was on the second level, wasn't it?
Correct.
And quite near, I imagine quite near the corridor where you had that experience. Is that right?
It wasn't too far, probably about 20 metres away.
Sure.
But the corridor that you're probably thinking about wasn't the corridor. It was down the way, and then it was connected to that corridor.
Right, okay.
But I was in the staff room, and I walked in and no one was there. I was by myself. And so I put my bag down, but then I walked out of the staff room and I went next door where our sort of lunchroom was. And the lunchroom was a bit of a rectangle. So you walk in from a narrow part of the room and you just walk straight in. It was very long. And at the end, there was a kitchenette, coffee and tea and so forth. Towards the side, there was a stereo, and it was a record player with an inbuilt cassette. And I had donated it to the school years before. And we would put it on at lunchtime or, and we would play records or we'd listen to the radio or put on cassettes or whatever it might have been. Anyway, that particular morning, I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, I could hear this music. This music was just like overhead. And I stopped and I looked up because the PA system is overhead. And it felt like the music was coming through the PA system. And then I moved closer to the PA system and I couldn't hear it coming from there. And it was this quiet, soft, I'll tell you what it was. It was, look, I don't know if you can envisage this because it's way before your time, but when I was a little kid, you could purchase these boxes where you opened it up and there was a little ballerina doing a ballerina dance in this music box. And it had this chime to it. And that was what I heard, this chime, this ballerina chime. And so when I went up to the PA, I thought, it's not coming from there. And then I looked down and I thought, it must be coming from the stereo. So I went to the stereo. It wasn't coming from there, but I'd also noticed that the electrical cord was pulled out from the plug, so it wasn't working there. And I thought, wow, this is really weird.
Yes.
And I went into the staff room because I wanted a cup of tea, but I didn't get to the kitchenette. I just thought, this is really weird. So I thought, no, I'm just going to go back next door. I'm going to just do my marking. So anyway, I went inside back to my desk, and my desk was in a corner of the room, and I was closest to one of the walls. And I'd been sitting there for many years. Anyway, my back was away from the door that you enter the staff room. And there are other desks and filing cabinets between my back and the entrance of that room. Anyway, I heard the door swing open. It was a heavy door. I heard this door swing open, and I heard these footsteps coming through that room, or coming through the doorway. And honestly, I thought it was a PE teacher who I knew normally would come into the school on a Saturday to do marking, and he was a regular.
Mm.
And I just called out without turning around, "Hey, buddy, it's me, Taco, just doing a bit of marking." And I genuinely believed he was already in the room because of the footsteps. But unusually, I didn't hear a response. No one said, "Oh, yeah, no worries," or "Good morning," nothing. I just heard these footsteps and nothing else. I thought, wow, that's really weird. So I got up, I walked over to where this particular teacher's desk was to check it was him, because you couldn't see it because of the high, just in that main thoroughfare when you walk in, you literally would walk to his desk, maybe 7 or 8 meters from the door. But from my desk, I couldn't see him because of the cabinets and other desks. So I walked over thinking I would see him there, and there was nobody there. And I looked down the corridor or the thoroughfare within the staff room to see if he was, maybe going towards where the photocopier was. Nothing. Didn't see anybody.
There was no one there.
There was no one there.
Right.
And I thought, I just heard someone come in the room. I just put my hands up. I said, oh, anyway. So I sat back down and I started marking. I reckon about 4 minutes later, I heard these steps on the carpet, very distinct steps, and they were coming towards me. I heard them I heard the thuds getting louder as it was coming towards me. I don't know why, Sean, but I did not turn around. I did not look to see who it was or anything like that. I just kept marking. And all of a sudden, the steps stopped behind my chair. They were literally behind me. But I didn't turn around. And then all of a sudden, I felt these hands on my shoulders from behind. I knew there was nobody there. I just knew that there was no one there, but I felt like there was by the hands on my shoulders. And it was at that time I slowly turned around and there was no one there.
When you turned around, did you feel the hands on the shoulders still there, or did they go at that point?
They were still there.
How did you feel at that time? What was the emotional response to that experience?
Oh, the hairs on my head and my arms, they just rose.
Yeah.
And I just got up.
Yeah.
And I spoke to them and I said, I know who you are. I know you're trying to tell me something. I don't know what it is. Perhaps you don't want me here, but that's fine. I'm going to leave. I literally had that conversation.
I see. Yep.
So I just packed up my gear, whacked the papers in my bag, and I just walked out the door and I went straight outside.
this was a Saturday morning. Were there times of year that you noticed these things happen more than others? Or like, was it seasonal in any way? Was there any kind of regularity or pattern to this type of activity that you experience? You go, oh, it's getting close to winter now, or it's spring, or
Look, I don't recall. I never recalled the seasons, or
yep.
I never thought of it in that manner before. Um,
I guess the reason I ask is
yeah.
that quite recently we've had another podcast episode where we're talking about a spot in Wentworth Falls that both Josh and I have had quite bizarre, uncanny experiences at, and it has a very strong Indigenous heritage to it. And this particular place has what is referred to as more of a masculine meeting area, like a place where men would go. And that sometimes when women would enter into this space, it was kind of like they felt like they weren't allowed to be there. It was like there was a resistant energy. And so the reason I'm asking about this is because of some of the Indigenous connections we've talked about today, of whether you might have been trespassing at a time when there was, I don't know, some energy. Is this the time of year where we meet? I guess I'm just trying to
Yeah.
process that pattern as a
Yeah.
possibility.
That's an interesting theory. I never thought of it in that sense.
Mm,
But I couldn't say
yep.
what times of the year, seasonal times of the year, I had those experiences. So,
Were you ever
um,
concerned that when you're having auditory experiences, were you ever concerned about mental health in any way? Not to say that that's what's going on, but
mm,
did it concern you that you went, oh, I'm really worried about this, or did you sort of just take it for granted and move on?
no, I just took it for granted. I
Yeah.
I often thought, well, why are you coming to me?
Mm-hmm.
And because when on the occasions where um, I, there might have been a group of us talking about these things at school, other colleagues, none of them had experienced anything. Like, I was really quite unique in that
Mm,
situation, and I often thought, well, why are you targeting me? Why
mm,
why is it? And I just came to the conclusion that I'm open
yep.
to that sort of communication, and they
Yep.
sense that,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to perhaps communicate something to me. Um,
Did you
look,
ever get a sense of what that was, what the message or the import of what that was?
no, I don't. No, no, I've got no idea. I don't know what they were trying to say to me. Um, yeah, I literally don't know. Um, yeah,
Is there any other stories that you'd like to share?
yeah. There is another quite a powerful one that I experienced um, when it was a seminary. They used to have this accommodation block. It was three or four stories high.
That was the B
It was
block, is that right?
B block,
Yep.
correct. And I had an office up there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so all the coordinators had an office up there, um, and I had an office up there. And so I remember that there was a period of time in the early 1990s
Mm-hmm.
where I had gone back to university, and I had been spending a lot of time. I was writing a thesis, and I had been spending a lot of time in my own time up in my office because it was quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and because I had young children, I couldn't have a lot of noise around. So I would I would spend a lot of time up there, especially at night, and I'd be there till maybe 1 in the morning, just writing and trying to get this thing done. There was one particular evening that I was there, and it was a sort of a stormy, very, very windy evening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always park my car right near the entrance of the B block.
Mm-hmm.
So I could make a quick exit, switch off the lights because it was all black, and still have enough time to get into the car without tripping over. Anyway, one night it was, like I said, very stormy, very windy, and I could hear these. It was so stormy, I could hear these bins we had these bins made out of, metal,
Mm-hmm.
and I could hear the wind howling and knocking down these bins everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, it's really bad out there, And anyway, it was probably 1 a.m, and I thought, geez, I better get going. It's getting worse. So I switched off everything and I went down several flights of stairs. And as I was walking to my car, I noticed this flash. I don't know. It was just like a flash. And
Lightning
it wasn't
flash?
a lightning.
No.
Well, it wasn't a lightning flash. It was a very narrow flash. And it was something that moved very quickly in front of me at ground level.
And this was outside the B block near your car?
Outside the B block.
Was it raining? Was it raining at the time and still
thundering? It was drizzling.
Drizzling?
It was drizzling heavily, but very windy.
And was any electricity or lights on at that time, or was it just completely dark?
It was completely dark. Besides, the lights were on and I had switched off the lights.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, this is really, I wonder what that flash was. I just thought to myself, I don't know what it is. Anyway, so I got into my car and I drove around. I had to do a bit of a U-turn up the top where the flash was. I went round there, and then I drove back down towards the drama room, which you know of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I went in front of the drama room, and for some reason I just stopped the car. And I just had a look around and I could see all the bins scattered everywhere from the wind. And I thought, wow, this is really unusual, really, really, really weird. So then I started proceeding, and I was now driving between the school and this very old building, which was a presbytery where a priest used to live.
Mm-hmm.
I was in this narrow gap. And all of a sudden, to the left of me, I saw this flash again at ground level. And I just stopped the car up. I slammed the brakes on. I slammed the brakes on. And I thought, what is going on here? And all of a sudden, this person was like dressed in white. Everything was white. And he just pounced on my bonnet. And he just stared at me like this. It was like a ghost. He just stared at me. And it was only less than half a metre away. And then he jumped off, and this flash just started running or moving towards one of the fields.
Mm-hmm.
And I was stunned. I thought, what was that?
John, I have to ask, was it a man or a woman, or was it a person? Was it? Could you
to
recognize?
me, it looked like a man.
But all in white or glowing white?
All in white. And it's like the guy had powder over his face.
Right. And what was the expression on the face of this white figure that
They
jumped on your
just
car?
jumped and they just looked at me with this intense stare just for a second. And then they just bounced off. And all of a sudden, it was like a flash just moving and running or floating, I don't know, but towards the field.
So just to clarify, when you're outside the B block, you saw a flash. Was it the same color? Was it a white flash?
Yeah, it was a white flash.
And then you stopped at the drama rooms, I guess, thinking that it was very weird, then drove through between the school and the presbytery, then saw the flash again, and then a moment later, the figure jumped on top of your car and then flashed off again.
Yep.
I imagine that this time you felt terrified, but I'm guessing.
I was terrified, and
yes.
it's this feeling where your heart is in your mouth.
Wow. And yeah,
I was speechless and I was frozen. I just froze. I just didn't know. I didn't know, is that human? Is that non-human? What was that?
was the figure translucent, or were they solid when you looked at them?
To me, when it was on the bonnet, it looked solid.
Mm-hmm.
But when they disappeared, it was like this translucence, or this translucent figure.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
And can I ask were there any sounds that happened at that time, or did you hear the sound of like weight on the car? Could you feel anything
Oh
happen
yeah,
on the car?
I just, they pounced on the bonnet. So all I heard was this thump on
Right.
the bonnet.
Okay.
So it was something, and then they ran off.
John, have you described this to anyone else at any point at the school? Did anyone have anything that occurred to them that was similar to this experience that you talked
I
to?
think on that Monday, I mentioned it to literally one or two people,
Mm-hmm.
and they were gobsmacked, thinking, oh, you know, must have been someone trying to get into the school or something like that. And I thought, I don't know. I mean,
I have to ask,
if they were trying to do something, why would they confront me?
was the object illuminated in any way, or the apparition, or the figure illuminated in any way? Like, or was there a light source coming onto it, or because it's in front, your headlights are not there, so
Yeah,
how could you
that's right.
what did it look like? Did it have its own light
I
source?
No, but I could see their face clearly, as if there was a light there, but it was clear.
Right.
And they had this. They had like a hood around them.
Right.
It was like, so I could only see the face, and you'd think that they're in the middle of the night, I wouldn't be able to see them. It was just really weird because, like, right as you rightfully said, the headlights are beyond the bonnet, and there's no lights at the school at night, none at all. But I saw their face because they literally put their face right close to the windscreen.
That story is incredible. What an incredible experience to have. How do you feel now looking back at your time at at the school? Um, do you have you experienced anything like this outside of the school?
Look,
Or do you feel that it's more those experiences were heightened by the place?
look, I have experienced little things outside of the school, just things around my house and when I was younger as well. Like as a as a late teenager when I was still living at home. I don't know. I Yes. So I am the things that I've experienced. I am a believer that of these sort of extraordinary situations that can occur, and whether it's paranormal or whatever, I don't know. I haven't got the language to explain it,
Mm.
but I know that I have experienced stuff, and I don't know why I do, and whether other people do. Is this common among most people? I don't know. I've never done the research. I've never asked. So I don't. It's not a topic of conversation that I would have
Mm-hmm.
with people normally. People from time to time, especially students, you know, new to the school, they say, "Oh, sir, you've been here for a while. Can you tell? Are there any ghost stories?" And I sort of have a bit of a giggle, and I might say something very light to them about stuff, and but yeah, nothing that I would sort of really pull my heart out
Mm.
and talk about the detail. My mum had a saying, it's not the dead you should fear, it's the living.
It's so funny you say that because my mum said the same thing to me as a kid.
Yeah,
Exactly. Like you should be more afraid of the living than the dead, she used to say to me.
yeah.
And what that did for me was it sort of not demystified it, but gave it validity. Like it was not
Mm,
like a denial of, oh, that's ridiculous. You're just pretending. That's just your imagination. It was embracing it, but also not being frightened of it or being closed off to it, which I think is why you have possibly why you are still open to these experiences because you're not afraid. You're not afraid
yeah,
to experience it.
yeah. No, I'm not afraid. Um, and I guess, like you said, my parents, particularly my mum, yeah, she never denied those things.
Mm,
Um, yeah, it just gave me an opportunity to accept it, embrace the experience, and not necessarily over analyze it.
sure.
Just accept that things like this happen.
It would it be, the school that you worked at for so many years. How do you feel about going back to that place now? Do you still have? Do you go back there often? Are you there from time to time? And do you have these kind of connections anymore?
Um, I retired from the school um, at the end of last year.
Hmm.
I did go back once this year to, they had a morning tea for me.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, I haven't experienced anything like that in recent times. Um, but I've left my mark there, you know, and I built a lot of gardens when I was a teacher there, and the main quadrangle, the garden I built myself there and put the plants in and all that. There was a memorial garden. So when I was a teacher there in the early 1990s, there was a student in my class. He passed away. And so I built this memorial garden for him. But since then, we've added more. Other kids have passed away, so we've put little sandstone blocks in there with the plaque. So that's a beautiful garden. So that was a garden. Back when it was a seminary, there used to be this beautiful rose garden, but that's deteriorated since then. And so, over the course of me being there, I designed and built this this rose garden. Now it's beautiful. Now it's paved and it's just a lovely rose garden, a place that you can go and contemplate and enjoy that space. So I've left my mark there, I guess, in a way. That and that mark is spiritual for me because it's something that's growing. The plants are there, and it creates an atmosphere of peace and tranquility. So it's in either of the gardens you could easily sit there and contemplate and be really at peace. So I don't know. That's it. Yeah, it's a place that I guess I just wanted to leave as a sign of my gratitude of working there.
It is a beautiful school, and speaking with one of your colleagues, many of the students then come back to work at the school and stay there for a really long time. I think there's a really powerful, beautiful energy, a very creative place. For me, it certainly was a place where I discovered, my vocation, my artistic calling was really enriched there. There's one particular space there, just on the other side of the quadrangle from the entrance. There was a hall there, big old wooden hall. We used to have some meetings in there. We used to do some assemblies in there. And for a while, my family's grand piano was, they donated it to the school for several years. And
That's
I remember
right.
one time, Josh, another friend of ours, Luke O'Callaghan, we got together one late afternoon by ourselves after hours at the school, and we had this, I think it must have been like an hour long or 90-minute long jam session. Luke was playing piano, Josh was playing bass, I was playing saxophone, and both Josh and I remember that as a time where we played so far outside of our experience as musicians at the time that it was just almost like a magical moment of like just being really energized by that particular hall. I'm just curious as to the location of some of the strong experiences that you had. Was it either below or near that particular space, that hall itself, or was that hall below the second level where you had some of the moments in the corridor?
Yeah. So the corridor moment
Yeah,
was right above, probably where that piano
right.
was directly above that on that floor.
Interesting. I have been meaning to ask that question since the first part of this interview when I heard that, because I wanted to locate where that was, and I was like, I wonder, because that place had a very, very powerful creative force for us. Nothing necessarily supernatural, but it certainly took us outside of our sort of regular limitations and lifted us in a way.
Yeah. There was another experience I had, and it was late at night, probably around 10 p.m. at night, and it was on the same level as the hall, but but maybe about 10 meters beyond the hall, and it was in the first library
Yes.
that the school had, and it was in there. Yeah, I had a very powerful experience in there. So yeah, I guess yeah, that section. Yeah, there might be something to it. I don't know.
I'd be yeah, really curious. I know we're going to try and have a conversation with a couple of other people that worked at the school, because not necessarily that they had experiences there, but they have mentioned a couple of people that used to work there that might be interested to talk about it as well. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing these stories. And when I asked you originally about it, what was the reason you wanted to, talk about these things?
I just think it's worth talking about. I
Mhm.
think I want to um, just share my experience with regards to that place. That place is special to me.
Mhm.
I spent, you know, an enormous amount of time, 41 years of my life there.
Wow.
Um, and it is a special place. And I think talking about some stories of that place that had an impact on me um, is important. We hear stories about different things of,
Mhm.
like, for example, there's every day there are stories coming out of that place because they're on Instagram and they're talking
Mm.
about this kids' experiences and awards and all that. So there's plenty of stories, but I guess the story that I have, or some of the experiences that I have, are quite unique,
Mm.
and they're not easily replicated. And a lot of, probably 99.8% of people don't have those experiences.
Mm.
Um, so I thought it was worth sharing and having a few of those on record.
Thank you for allowing us to record these ideas, and I'll definitely, I'm so looking forward to sharing this with Josh and with other people, because it's been fascinating. Yeah, hearing your story. I'm really genuinely appreciative of your time and grateful for you sharing that story.
Yeah, look, I appreciate you reaching out, and I hope it goes well, Sean.
Me too.
And yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's been enjoyable.
Well, there we go.
Great. Once again, a great interview. It's lovely to see some pretty crazy stuff there. There's some pretty,
And saves the best for the last. I couldn't believe
yeah.
that. I couldn't believe he had that one up his sleeve, and I was like, John, what are you doing?
It's
What?
pretty intense, dude.
Yeah.
It ties in with a few other stories. A story that we mentioned on one of our previous podcasts from Sister Anne, and
Yeah.
kind of the hooded white figure or the monk
Yes.
that people talk about. Like, it's pretty full on, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, I asked him, I asked him in the interview, did you see any monks? But then he said no. But then he describes
The hooded
someone with
figure.
a hooded figure on, on the
Mm.
car, and I'm just like, well, maybe that's it. But
I thought it
yeah,
was really the first story, the one about being pushed or pressed.
yeah,
That's something that I find really interesting, because the touch phenomena.
mm,
You're talking about people seeing things, feeling things, but imagine that situation. Like, I don't recall ever having been physically manipulated by any such thing
yeah.
that I haven't seen.
Yeah, well,
It's
like,
pretty crazy.
well, on the previous episode when we were chatting with Mum, she mentions that physical contact as well,
Yes.
and I know that that comes up for people from time to time. Yeah, I haven't had that experienced personally, but I think it would be pretty crazy. And that loss of time that he talked about
Yes.
is unique because that was something that you and our mate
Yeah.
experienced in the Springwood Cemetery that time.
Which is quite a common occurrence connected to any form of paranormal activity. It's quite regular that people will discuss the idea of time having run away on them. But having said that, I think it's been if anyone stayed with us, that was a long episode, but I think a lot of great stuff came out of it. So thank you for hanging about and watching it.
Yeah, yeah. And we're putting these things here as part of a way to document these stories, get people talking about it.
Yes.
So we really appreciate the people that watched and stayed with the episode. So thanks very much. We'll be back in a few more weeks with another story from the mountains. I think it might be another haunted story that's coming up real soon. So looking forward to seeing everyone in a couple of weeks.
Great.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.